My name is Jason Buffington, and we are wrapping up a series of Veeam Innovation Award Winners for 2023. Let me go ahead and set some context for this particular segment. One of the things that Veeam does every year is we use independent research firms to go out and find market intelligence on what's happening in the data protection industry. It helps us with understanding what to build at Veeam directly and through our partners. One of the most compelling stats that we watch each and every year is the hybridness, or in Texas we would call it the hybridity of what IT infrastructure looks like. If we take a look at our first data point as far as what's going on in the IT space, let's go ahead and bring that up. And what we're looking at here is organizations every year are asked, what percentage of your production workloads are physical? You see those on the left. Virtual, you see those in the middle, or cloud hosted, we see those on the right. And what you're looking at here is actually a 4-year run rate. So we asked the question in each of 2020, 21, 22, and 23. Those are the green lines. And oh, by the way, each year we also ask, what are you going to do 2 years out? And so 22 gave us 24, and 23 gives us 25, and that's how you get 6 lines out. Interestingly enough, by the way, you'll see that on that the left bar of each of the sets, that's pre-COVID, right? And as we all know, during COVID, there was a huge adoption and acceleration of cloud, and then everything after that kind of normalizes out. But I think the punchline that I hope folks take away from this, where are we in the middle of 2023? Well, certainly a couple things. One, 28% still physical, 25% still virtual, 47% cloud hosted. What that means is that nothing is going away. Right? As cloud continues to be adopted, it's not like they're decommissioning physical and virtual machines. And so we have this hybrid scenario where everything has to be protected. And that's one of the 2 macro trends, is the diversity of workloads that modern organizations rely on today. There's a second macro trend I want to use to set up today's conversation. Let's go ahead and go to that slide as well. In this case, we asked organizations, what is the likelihood that your organization will utilize some kind of a managed service, backup as a service, and or disaster recovery as a service? And interestingly enough, if you look at those 2 green wedges, collectively 81%. 4 out of 5 organizations are either very likely or almost certainly to use either backup as a service or disaster recovery as a service to protect some of their production workloads along the way. So 2 macro trends, cloud in production and the likelihood of cloud for protection across the industry. And with that in mind, I want to introduce 2 things. I want to introduce virtualDCS as one of our 4 Veeam Innovation Award winners for 2023. And with that, I want to introduce Richard May. Richard, welcome to the show. And let's go ahead and bring Richard in if we can. And Richard, congratulations on the Veeam Innovation Award for 2023. In fact, you not only earned the Veeam Innovation Award, you also earned Best in Show among the VIAs at VeeamON 2023. Now, you've got a lot of competencies. We're going to talk about those in a few seconds. But first, Richard, introduce us to virtualDCS.
Hi, yep. So virtualDCS, based in the UK, predominantly a partner-driven service provider. So we provide disaster recovery and backup services, it mainly into the channel. So we have customers who have customers, and that's our real focus.
Love that. Now, if we can, let's go back to the what I call the logo slide for this, because Richard, I think it's interesting that you've got quite a bit of logos as far as how you deliver services to customers, but you also mentioned you deliver a lot of your services not directly to the customer, but through the partner ecosystem as well. Talk about what does it take to deliver your solution outcomes through partners?
A lot of work. So we've basically created a lot of systems on top of Veeam systems, and we've very much geared them up for our partners to be able to pass them on to their customers. So a lot of work's done in making sure our partners understand the services a lot of work's been spent on listening to what the customers and the partners want from our services, and then creating lots of materials and stuff like that. So we've got things like partner portals where people can get real breakdowns of what we do, what's available, and what sort of pain points we can solve.
So I will admit I have a version of this next diagram actually on my laptop, because that's what happens when you're the Best in Show winner from VeeamON. I notice a lot of different language here around 365. You've got on-prem, you've got Kubernetes. We're going to talk about some of that in just a few minutes. There's a huge breadth of what your CloudCover platform offers. That seems like it kind of aligns with our opening point on that most organizations today don't have just one major topology. They're not even using just one cloud. Did that first data point, did that surprise you? And how does that align with the CloudCover offerings?
No, it didn't really surprise me. I mean, what we've been trying to do with our service wheel here is basically cover all the different aspects of cloud. People have got data all over the place and in all different places. And CloudCover was really created to create sort of a holistic view on that. So one solution to bring that data and protect it all and enable you to create nice, concise disaster recovery plans, et cetera, et cetera. By having one solution rather than having lots of fragmented solutions to back up different things. So the service wheel really brings in that sort of everything from 365, on-prem backup, off-prem backup, DRAS, and even down to things like our storage solutions with Seagate, where we actually have portable encrypted hard drives that we can rent to people for helping them recover from a disaster or even just the initial seeding. And then finally, the Cyber Protect is a security aspect that we've added for doing sort of AI scanning on mailboxes so that we can actually help with a bit of ransomware preemptive protection rather than just being a get out of jail free card at the end.
Got it. I got to say, to me, holistic is a magic word in this case. One of the things that we're often starting to hear, especially as so many organizations are struggling with as they adopt production clouds, plural, it seems like everybody has a built-in utility or widget that can protect that cloud. But I have never met an IT administrator that wanted to go use one utility from one vendor for 365, a different utility for VMware, a different utility for their Windows, a different utility for their NAS and their Kubernetes. I mean, just, I can't imagine anyone having that much time to manage those many kinds of tools and utilities. From a comprehensiveness perspective, what does it take to provide almost a single pane of glass where they don't have to think about the minutia of tools per workload? What does that take?
It basically just takes pulling everything together. So we've done the donkey work. We've made sure we understand what all the data feeds are, data streams, et cetera, et cetera. Once you've done it a few times, you understand it. If you're just backing up, it's not necessarily 100% of your day job.
Sure. And that kind of brings me to my next point. So one of the things when we talk about having done it a few times and how do you normalize that experience, I've been in the IT space for about 34 years, judging from the gray in our matching beards. You've probably been around about the same amount of time. The one thing that kind of daunts me as far as what we're facing today is it's pretty easy to look at physical and then virtual and maybe even some of the more generic clouds like 365. But when we start looking at things like containers, microservices, and Kubernetes, that is such a different animal that a lot of IT pros are not used to. And so it'd be very easy to think, how different is the data protection for that? I love the fact that from a virtualDCS perspective, you've normalized a lot of that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But just to kind of remind folks, one of the other data points that was surveyed in this year's study from the Data Protection Trends Report, by the way, you are welcome to get all of these charts and a lot more if you hit that QR code in the upper right-hand corner. But one of the things that was asked was, is your organization using containers today? For a lot of folks, it would be easy to underestimate and assume that containers is coming. Containers is not coming. Containers is here. right? And so you look at here, 52 plus 40, so 92% of organizations are either in full production with containers or they're in that planning deployment curve right now along the way. So 92%, 9 out of 10 organizations. In fact, I think it's interesting that only 1% of the 2,000 respondents in this question said not interested. 1%. Right? So unless you're in that, containers is in your future. And yet, Richard, I'm a little surprised when organizations today, again, not Veeam customers or virtual DCS customers for that matter, when the question was asked, how are you protecting containers? A lot of them are simply protecting the storage layer component or the database component of their containers framework. That's not going to give them a full recovery experience, is it?
Not really, no. So that's a lot of the work that we've done, and a lot of what we've seen with containers as well is that people are actually using these containers on-prem. So they're actually not necessarily in the cloud, but actually have their own Tanzus, ranches, etc. actually running in their environment. And what this diagram is really showing is the fact that these environments are usually talking to legacy solutions. So not everything's born in the cloud. You know, people are talking to Oracle solutions and really sort of enabling the power of containerized development, but still using the legacy data. So our solution, which is powered by Cast and by Veeam, has really been designed to pull all this back together again. So very much playing on being cloud adjacent, and everything we do in our DR space plays on being cloud adjacent. We back up to our own facilities, our own object storage. So we're not sort of falling into the trap of backing up to where the first workloads were, Azure to Azure, AWS to AWS, etc. So we're very much focusing on a cloud adjacent solution. And then if you put all the Veeam products together with Kasten as well, then actually you've got a holistic approach to backup again, because when it comes to it, if everything fails, really you could do with it all being able to talk to each other when it comes back up again, and accessing an Oracle database remotely over a wire might not be the ideal situation for running your environment. So this diagram is really showing how we can bring up containers, we can bring up VMs, we can bring up all those replicated workloads that the customer's already got, all replicated into us. In the case of a DR invocation, everything can be brought up together.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I've literally said on Twitter and interviews for years is the idea of whenever you modernize production, you have to modernize protection, because one of the challenges that we often see in organizations is that, and in fact, we saw this when hybrid cloud was really accelerated post-COVID, was that organizations were modernizing their production workloads, and then they realized they hadn't deployed the protection mechanisms to keep up with that, right? Just using 365 as an example, you might have had a really well-defined, mature retention, multi-version, multi-site protection model for Exchange on-prem, and then you moved it to 365, and you wondered why, oh, shoot, I guess I still got to back that up, and the tools weren't there for you, or you didn't know how to use those tools. I love the fact that by abstracting the details out of protecting one workload versus another, you've provided folks a way to ensure that as they modernize from their a workload from physical to virtual to cloud hosted to maybe SaaS or microservice based, the experience as well as the assurance of protection, it doesn't seem to change. Is that a fair generalization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just sort of staying ahead of the curve, making sure that we understand what's coming up, what other workloads are going to be available, and really most of this is available because of Veeam, because it has that full suite of products, and we very much see ourselves as Veeam Plus. So we take everything that Veeam does, we glue it together in a slightly different way to Veeam. We add our own features, our own spins. So our solutions, I say Veeam Plus, and that gets used by our partners. So most of our customers are actually other service providers, and these service providers are seeing the benefits of Veeam Plus, the benefits of how Veeam Plus can compete in the market. So we're able to compete with competitors competitors that Veeam wouldn't normally be strong against by ticking all those extra boxes for those things that you just wouldn't normally get. And we've had quite a lot of luck, particularly in 365, against other players in the market on a fairly regular basis.
I love that. Now, I have to believe that somewhere within Veeam, there's someone in legal who is just flipping out on trademarks of Veeam Plus. But we're not going to tell him. Maybe they won't watch this particular episode, because I personally like the idea. Anyway, let's take up one more data point to kind of set the last part of our context for conversation today. In the Cloud Protection Trends Report, which was actually delivered back in November of 22. So about 7 months ago-ish, 8 months, if my math is wrong. One of the questions that we've actually been asking for the last couple of years is, when organizations use a managed service, how much do they still want to run it? Right. And so what you're looking at here on the left-hand side is, even though they're consuming a managed service, so you automatically get capacity planning, you automatically get infrastructure, the jobs are being configured or monitored at least, so the health of the backup servers there, they're not babysitting, instances of Veeam on-prem in all cases anymore. And yet, when organizations were asked who's going to actually drive the ship, surprisingly, only 46% of the consumers said we still want to drive it. And now there's 23% in the middle. Those are even mix, right? So that always drives me nuts in survey work. You ask for chocolate or vanilla, and they ask for swirl. Anyway, there's a neutral in the middle, and then there's 31% that said no, I want the managed service provider to just run the whole thing for me. What isn't on the slide, but I think is really important, is a year ago when the same survey question was asked, 13% said they wanted the managed service provider to run it. This year it's 31%. And my theory on this, and Richard, I'd love to get your feedback on this. My theory is, if the only thing you're doing is sending data up into a cloud and you still manage all the pieces and parts, you're not actually getting the full value of what managed backup should look like, right? To get full value, you want smart humans watching your screens for you. You want people that see these errors and these issues and these bugs every day to then help you manage through them and patch them and maintain them. And so the idea of a 13 going towards 31%, so more than 2.5x in perception shift in 1 year, that makes a lot of sense to me, considering the fact that it's partners that often deliver the virtual DCS promise. Is that what they're seeing? Is that why so many partners are coming to virtual DCS, so they can provide that kind of outcome for their customers?
Absolutely, and the single pane of glass that we've created has been really designed to help partners with that. And so we've looked at it very much from the point of view of having a single area where our partners can see all their services for all their customers in one point, and without having to flick around between multiple screens, and really consolidating all those warnings, so you can really see straight off with the traffic light system what's going on. And our partners have been able to add their customers on really quickly as well. So they haven't had to build infrastructures. We can have someone set up on 365 backup in minutes. We can have somebody doing Cloud Connect in minutes. So they're benefiting from all those points of the speed, really. So like a service provider in a box, in a way, it can literally be up and running everything within minutes, with the material from our website, with material from our partner portal. So we really are enabling those service providers, and that's the biggest growth we've seen. That economies of scale, the fact that we understand what's going on, and the other big thing we see is people just don't understand the power of Veeam. Things like Shore Backup and stuff like that. The number of people that don't use it, don't actually realize what it's there for. Unless we start to bring in our services, particularly with like our on-prem appliances, we can just automate that automated testing on-prem, start automating a lot of these processes and really getting that 32110 dream off the ground. And usually they've got the kit to do it. They just haven't actually had the knowledge to actually implement it.
So one of the things I love about what you said and about the value prop that CloudCover offers is when you think about any partner, and we have lots of partners and we love them, right? But when you think about what does it take to actually be successful as a VCSP, there is a Veeam cloud service provider. There is the amount of effort it takes to stand up the infrastructure and maintain the infrastructure to deliver Veeam backup services. And then once you've got the infrastructure running, then there's the value add, right? Then there's the consultancy and the expertise and the partnership that happens between the partner and the subscribing customer. And what I think I've heard you say is that you've removed all of the burden from the first part, the tactical of standing up the infrastructure and ensuring that reliable backups happen, so that your partners can then focus on delivering the value, delivering the expertise and the consulting. And so I love that you've slid that scale over so that your partner systems around the UK and beyond are focusing on the delivery and the value and focusing on outcomes and not focusing on, hey, we got to go manage the servers and patch them and deploy them and watch them. And you've taken that out of their hands. And I love that. Is that the right way to think about the relationship between virtualDCS, your partners, and their customers?
We're an enabler. We're enabling our partners to offer these services, and so often backup is a small part of everything that they do. And you don't necessarily need to be an expert in every single thing. So increasingly, partners lead on us because they don't necessarily want to be a backup expert. They've got so many other things to focus on. So actually having us do it for them really does give them the confidence to go forward with a full backup as a service solution that we've sat behind and we're driving.
Got it. All right, so we've got just a little bit of time left. I'm going to give you two last things. One, if you had 30 seconds in front of a room full of CIOs, what's one pearl of wisdom that you wish everyone would take away?
Back things up. Yeah, I think one thing actually that people really overlook is just the speed of recovery. So people come to backup, they back up, and then they have a problem, and then they try and recover from the backups. And at the point of conversation, they always say, "Oh no, we're not bothered as long as it's back in a day or 2 days." But in reality, when it starts to go wrong, they want everything back immediately. And I think something that people overlook is disaster recovery as a service is far cheaper than it's ever been. And actually, it's an option people don't look at. And I think people should look at it because people want things back far faster when they when they haven't got it than when they were thinking about it in advance.
Actually, I was going to give you a second setup, but actually you nailed it, so I don't have to give you a two-parter. Again, Richard, on behalf of Veeam, thank you for being a partner. Congratulations on your VIA. Congratulations on Best in Show. Thank you for demonstrating what happens when you take the entire breadth of the Veeam portfolio and deliver it in a way that makes our mutual customers successful. And lastly, thanks for joining the show today. I really enjoyed the call.
Thanks for inviting me. Cheers.
And to everyone else, thanks for watching. Have a great week.